Hey everyone, Mike Hidalgo here. Thank you for joining us on another FCP Euro DIY. Today we're going to be working on a 2016 Audi S3. Today on the S3 behind me, we're going to be covering how to replace your battery. This is going to be applicable for your A3, S3, TT, possibly your TTS, as well as a couple other cars like the Jettas and the Golfs. What's great about the car behind me is that this vehicle does not have a battery management system, so we don't have to worry about programming a new battery. Specifically for this vehicle, we're installing an AGM Group 48 battery. This has a CCA of 720, so should help you out in those cold winter months. A couple things to look for if you're on the hunt for a possibly bad battery is check your dash. Usually if your battery is going bad and or alternator, which is a different situation, you may have a battery light on the dash. Another thing you can do is take a voltmeter to it and test it. As long as it's around 12 or above, usually it's going to be a very healthy battery. Anything below that may depend if the car's been sitting or if it has a bad alternator, again, like we mentioned. Another thing is if you have a hard start issue in the mornings, either if it's cold or not, if the car doesn't turn over as easily, just know that the battery could be a possible cause for that. There's a lot of things that could affect that, but an easy thing to check with a voltmeter. But before we get started on this DIY, let's take a look at some of the tools we're going to need for this job. For this job, we're going to need a couple simple tools, starting with a ratchet. I'm using a 3/8 ratchet today with a 3-inch extension, as well as a 13mm socket and a 10mm socket. Now we have our tools covered, let's get started on this DIY. All right, my good people, thank you for joining me underneath the hood of this S3. To get started, we're going to go ahead and remove our flap here that protects the battery. And we're going to locate our terminals as well as our battery hold down. You have your positive terminal towards the front of the vehicle, your negative terminal towards the rear of the vehicle or the firewall, and in between the airbox and the battery, you also have a 13mm bolt. That's going to be our battery hold down. So before we get started with anything, let's go ahead and disconnect our terminals first. You're going to need a 10mm socket to undo both of the nuts that hold everything into place. And you always want to, when disconnecting the battery, you always want to start by disconnecting the negative first. Take that off, set it to the side, and push it down. Now we can go ahead and remove our positive. Same thing, set that to the side. And now we're going to need a 13mm socket to get our hold down bolt off. Again, I'm just using a 13mm socket on my extension. You just reach down and grab it. A magnet tool would also come in handy for this job. To make life a little bit easier for us today, I'm going to go ahead and just pull this covering off for now. Next, I'm going to go ahead and grab the battery hold down and remove that out of our way. If it's stuck, just give the battery a light wiggle and you'll be able to pull it up. From there, we're going to go ahead and slide the battery towards the airbox a little bit so we can unhook it from the other end of the battery tray and then pull up. When installing your new battery, you want to make sure that the end on the firewall side slides underneath this upside down L. This is a fixed part of the battery tray that helps locate the battery as well as hold it in place. So just make sure that it's nice and snug all the way in there before you go ahead and try to install your hold down on the other side. Grab the new one by the handle and just reverse the removal, keeping it closer to the airbox if possible, and then sliding it over. I can't lift it up anymore, that means it's nice and locked into place. Now I'm going to go ahead and feed my hold down back into its home as well. And now without dropping it, I'm going to go ahead and feed my 13 back into place. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and take my extension and socket and just get it lined up and started by hand first. Now we can go ahead and snug it up. It's nice and snug. That battery's going nowhere, baby. All right, with that done, we can go ahead and put our protective cover back over. And now with that in place, you can go ahead and reconnect the battery. You always want to start with your positive terminal first on the new one. Go ahead and remove the protective cover. Slide your terminal over. Make sure it's down and as flush with the body of the battery as possible. And then again, using a 10mm socket, started by hand, snug it up. These don't take a lot of torque, but you can see just by snugging it up nicely, it's more than tight enough. Now, same thing with the negative. We're going to go ahead and remove our protective cover. Slide our negative terminal back over. And once fully in place, again, 10mm socket, and boom. Go ahead and put the blanket back over. Sing it a lullaby. Beautiful. There you have it. And there you have it, my good people. Another DIY in the books. Overall, a pretty straightforward job and nice and easy since we don't have to program the battery. A couple things to note. You may have to reset your favorite radio stations, but other than that, pretty straightforward job. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments on what we did today, leave them in the comment box below. And if you like this DIY and you want to see more like them, please consider subscribing. We make new ones all the time. As always, thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.